In my 33 years of business, I've made countless mistakes, and I'm going to share with you my top 5. Number 1, stay in your lane. I've made this mistake so many times. For me, we're a multifamily investor, builder, and manager, and that's all I should ever be. But I veered off the path many, many times. So you need to be clear on what is your business and then be the best in that niche. Most people cast a wide net and don't really even have a business plan. This is why most businesses fail. One example is I started a carpet cleaning, installation, and repair business. I figured, why not? I have all these rentals. Why not capitalize on all this carpet and flooring turnover? What a huge mistake that was. I hired guys, I bought trucks, I bought machines, I got extra space, and then I tried to manage it all on about 5 or 10 hours a week. You can't run a successful business and scale it on 5 to 10 hours a week. In 2 short years, I had many sleepless nights, spent a lot of time off of my core business, and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars only to wind it all down at some point just 3 years later. The point is that I could have used that extra 5 or 10 hours per week to grow my core business if I would have stayed in my lane. I see a lot of people doing this today because they're just trying to generate some side hustles. The truth is, staying in your lane requires focus and discipline. It's really, really hard to stay in your lane and to eliminate all the distractions that will continually come to you when you own a business. Not only you, but investors, staff, banks, everyone needs some kind of a direction, whether that's in-house or consultants, because without some kind of direction and some kind of focus on some kind of a goal, it's extremely hard to measure progress and performance. Another example is when we started doing condo conversions. We started buying apartments, which is exactly what I do now, but then I started to sell them off individually as condos. And while we made a lot of money and we paid a lot of tax, at the end, we had no assets, and we worked our butts off for about 5 years. I sometimes look back at that time and wish I would have never sold those properties off and kept them as apartments. Number 2, leveraging OPT, which is other people's time. The number one thing of all business owners is that they all think that they're the best at what they do and no one can do it better, and they try to do everything themselves. Think of a dentist, a doctor, CPA, or realtor. They're so smart that they don't believe anybody else can help them achieve their goals or run their business better than them. So instead of a business, they have a busyness. And then at some point, they run out of time because there's only so many things one person can do. So one of the things that I did as a young man over 20 years ago is I took the Kolbe test, which is Kolbe. And they're local here in Arizona. But what they do is they test your individual strengths. It's called an instinctive assessment. So I did that, but then I did it for my whole staff because I was trying to figure out what am I really, really strong at and what am I really weak at, and then how do I find team members to be able to fill those gaps. The Kolbe test at the time had 4 different categories. 1 was a fact finder, 2 was follow through, 3 was quick start, and 4 was an implementer. And they put everybody in those categories based on a series of tests. I, of course, was a quick start, which I still am today. I like to start companies, but I hate all the details. I hate the follow-through. I hate the fact-finding and all the implementation. Even though I like to manage all those kinds of things, it drives me nuts to do all those little things. But I do have the ideas. So that was really helpful for me because now I was able to understand, stay in my lane with regard to who I am, then leverage other people's time be able to do things that they're strong at. So it's a win-win because not everybody's a salesperson. Not everybody's a quick start. There are many people who are fact finders, like attorneys and CPAs traditionally fall into those roles. So find out who you are and then build your team. So as I move my company forward, there are things that I do not like to do, like tax, like legal, like due diligence, those kinds of things. I do like to look at deals and I do like to review the underwriting, but I don't like to do the underwriting. I don't want to have to be the person that takes all that data and sticks it into the spreadsheet. But there are people that love to do that. So find those people and only do what you love to do and only do what you're the best at because that will move the needle the most for your business. And then figure out what you're not good at and find people that love to do those things. The third thing I learned as a business owner is that you have to be flexible and you have to learn how to pivot on a daily basis. Not everything falls in line with some business plan or some idea that you might have thought of a year ago. But the process is simply what I call R&D, which is rob and duplicate. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that, search for the best practices with the competitors in your business, and then just simply rob and duplicate their best practices and bring them into your own firm. You should be doing this anyway. You should always be looking for things that other people are doing to move their own individual needle better than you. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I drive around, I see all these businesses like chiropractors and dentists and doctors and restaurants. And I always wonder, like, they're in every single block, and sometimes there's multiple in every block. So what makes one better than the other? It's these small little things that they do better than their competition. And you have to always be on the lookout for things like that because the market continually changes. So new products change, pricing change, and of course today tech is changing. So AI is driving lots of different changes. And if you aren't adapting, you're actually falling behind. If you're standing still in your business, you're actually falling behind. You have to be always progressive. You have to always be implementing these things because your competitors are going to do it. You've all seen small businesses go out of business over time. It's typically because they don't adapt. There's nothing more constant than change. And if you don't adapt, you're going to fall behind and you'll soon be out of business and you'll lose sales over time. Number 4, in the beginning, when I first started my business, I didn't follow the money. So you may know that 40% of businesses fail because they run out of cash. Every single business on the planet depends on cash flow. Every single one. Without income, without cash flow, the business doesn't succeed. The problem is most people don't really have the financial skills to understand how a business runs. Most business owners learn this on the fly. The exception, of course, would be a CPA. I would hope that they understand numbers. But many entrepreneurs start off because they're really good at sales, as an example. We all know that person that's really good at sales and they're gregarious and they have all the nice new stuff, but they have less than $1,000 in the bank. That's the classic example of somebody who doesn't know how to manage their money. Most business owners fall into this category. So I implemented 3 things. The first thing was I established KPIs, or key performance indicators, in my business. They measured my sales and they measured my expenses. The second one, I was always taking a look at my margins no matter what I was doing. You have to look at your margins. A lot of people say sometimes to me, oh, we can make it up in volume. Well, that's the dumbest thing ever. Because if you don't have margin, volume is not going to help you. So when you take on an account or you're pricing something, there has to be enough profit in there to be able to pay everything, including you. A lot of people just take on business blindly and price things blindly without really understanding how it impacts them financially. The third thing is you have to have a budget, you have to know your budget, and you have to understand what it takes to cover it. And I'll give you an example of just yesterday. I'm looking at investing in a new business, and my number 1 question was, at what month do we break even? And the answer was 8 months. I want to be very clear on how we're going to generate the revenue to get to the 8 months, but also after that. Those are just simply opinions and calculations. You really have to understand where your income is coming from and your expenses, and it needs to be top of mind at all times. And you need to check this each and every month. And this extends beyond business. So when I was a young man, I thought, okay, I just got to make a bunch of money and I just won't spend anything and I'll live off of nothing. Well, that is one strategy, but you really need to understand what your monthly cash flow is. The whole goal is not to live below your means. It's actually to live within your means and make way more money than that so that you're happy, comfortable, and you're doing everything that you want. When I was a young man, I just focused on how much money I was making, and I had very little focus on the expenses. But as I rolled into business, I realized that you can't roll into business with that same philosophy. You're going to need other people. You have to pay for their time and their services. You really need to understand your net cash flow each and every month, and then you should have a plan for that money and not just stick it into savings. If you want some help getting started on your personal finances, you can grab the download at the link below. The fifth mistake was ignoring marketing. With marketing, I've spent too little and I've spent too much. You need to know who your customer is. So your job is to figure out, what do they like? What do they want? Who are they? And then you can direct all your advertising toward those people. So you need to understand your customer better than they understand themselves. You can articulate their problem to them and come up with their solution. You're going to have a customer for life. When I started, I wasn't focused on the customer, but now that's all we focus on, because if we can solve their problems, then we'll continue to have customers for a very long time. Most people focus on getting new customers when they should be focusing on their existing customers that are already giving them business. So for whatever reason, there seems to be this huge focus on getting new people, and you have to do that, don't get me wrong. But really, the best thing you can do is retain and take care of the people that are already giving you money and are already paying you for your services. This is a big push that we do internally in our own company. It's called resident retention. We are working with our residents months before they're even moving out to find out what their plan is, in the hopes that we can, of course, renew their leases. You will need to be communicating with your customers to find out what they want, which overall will help stabilize your cash flow and help your business succeed in the long run. Before you start a business, you need to be able to answer 3 very specific questions. I just did a video on that here.